In a world often blinded by the glare of grand theories and empty promises, a young soldier in the Sahel has chosen to write a new definition of progress in sweat, steel, and unyielding resolve. For decades, this land was whispered about in the corridors of power as a place of perpetual struggle, a nation destined to survive on the crumbs of international charity. But the dust is settling, and through the haze of history, a different silhouette is emerging. It is the image of a people no longer content with being the subjects of a tragedy, but the architects of a triumph. For too long, the narrative of this region was one of aid or perish, a cycle where sovereignty was traded for a handful of grain. Then came a moment of absolute clarity. In late September 2022, the pivot began. The question shifted from who will help us to what can we build with our own hands. This is not just a story of infrastructure, it is a story of a nation reclaiming its soul. If truth matters more than noise, give this a like. We go line by line through the miracles of Ouagadougou. Burkina Faso, also referred to as the Land of Incorruptible People, stands today as a testament to what is possible when dignity becomes a directive. Under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the country has embarked on an industrial and social overhaul that defies the conventional timelines of development. Critics in far-off capitals argued that a nation under the pressure of regional sanctions and internal security challenges should be focused on survival, not mega projects. They suggested that building stadiums, highways and industrial complexes was an exercise in hubris. But for the people of Ouagadougou and Bobo-Dioulasso, these are not mere vanity projects. They are the seeds of a harvest that has been delayed for 60 years. The philosophy is simple but revolutionary. Trade over aid, pride over pity. It is a belief that the soil of the Sahel is not a graveyard for dreams, but a cradle for an African renaissance. We see this in the calloused hands of the youth working on the RN4 expansion, and in the focus of the engineers at the new detergent plants. There is a rhythm to the construction, a pulse that suggests the heart of this nation is beating faster than the world ever expected. Ibrahim Traoré has framed this transformation as a revolution of sovereignty. It is an admission that true independence cannot be found in a flag or a song alone, but in the ability to feed your own people, to pave your own roads, and to own the energy that lights your homes. The transition from the colonial-era Total Energies to the locally owned Barca Energies was the first crack in the dam of dependency. It sent a clear message. The resources of this land will henceforth serve the interests of its citizens, yet this path is fraught with tension. Every brick laid and every mile of asphalt poured is a challenge to the status quo. The global powers watch with a mixture of fascination and unease, wondering if this model of rapid, military-led civic development can truly be sustained. They see the speed, projects that once took a decade now nearing completion, in less than 3 years, and they ask if the foundation is as solid as the rhetoric. But as the first 40 amphitheatres begin to rise and the modern buses of Sotraco start their engines, the evidence is becoming harder to ignore. The conflict is no longer just between nations, but between two different futures for the continent. Could it be that the blueprint for African success is being drawn right now in the dust of the Sahel? The answer lies in the specific, tangible progress of 20 ambitious initiatives that are changing the map of West Africa. We are about to witness the reality of these 20 mega-projects, and the speed at which they are reaching 100% completion is nothing short of lightning. To understand the speed of this transformation, one must first understand the weight of the silence that preceded it. For decades, the clock in this part of the world seemed to have stopped, its gears jammed by bureaucracy and a lack of national will. But since 2022, the ticking has become a thunder. What was once a landscape of blueprints and broken promises has become a theatre of action, where projects that were expected to take a generation are reaching 100% completion in less than 3 years. This is the era of war-speed development, where the discipline of the barracks has been brought to the heart of the city. The most visible symbol of this new pace stands in the capital, Ouagadougou. The Stadium of the 4th of August, a monument that had fallen into such disrepair it was banned by international footballing bodies, has been completely reborn. In less than 24 months it was stripped to its bones and rebuilt to meet the exacting standards of both CAF and FIFA. On the 4th of August, 2025, the gates were thrown open to a roaring crowd, marking not just the return of international sport but the return of national competence. It was a message to the world. Burkina Faso no longer accepts the good enough standard, it demands the best. This drive for excellence is mirrored in the energy sector, perhaps the most sensitive artery of any nation's sovereignty. The transition from the French-owned Total Energies to the fully nationalised Baka Energies was completed with surgical precision. By December 2025, nearly 200 service stations across the country had been rebranded, staffed and integrated into a domestic supply chain. This was not a mere change of signs, it was a reclaiming of the light. For the first time in modern history, the fuel that powers the trucks, the buses and the economy of this land is managed by the hands of its own people. If this helped you think more clearly, a simple thank you in the comments is more than enough, and we continue. Industrial sovereignty followed closely behind. The FI detergent industrial complex, inaugurated in early 2025, has already hit its stride. Operating at a daily capacity of 300 tons, it has turned a nation that once imported almost all its cleaning products into a producer. The facility, built at a cost of 4.5 billion CFA francs, represents the import substitution model in its purest form. It is the logic of the seed. Why buy the fruit from across the sea when you can plant the tree in your own soil? The streets themselves have become the canvas for this rapid modernisation. The Sotraco bus project has delivered 530 modern vehicles to the urban corridors of the country. This fleet has fundamentally altered the daily lives of thousands of workers and students, reducing wait times and providing a dignity to public transport that was previously non-existent. Coupled with the rollout of automated toll stations on major highways, the government has created a digital fence against corruption. These stations, equipped with transparent collection systems, ensure that every coin paid by a driver goes directly into the national treasury to fund the next bridge, the next road, and the next school. But how is such a pace maintained in a region known for delays? The answer lies in the Faso Maye initiative, a civic development program that has mobilized the youth as a national workforce. Under the direct supervision of military engineering units, thousands of young professionals and labourers have been organised into highly efficient construction brigades. There is no room for the lethargy of the past. In these work zones, the hierarchy is clear, the objectives are non-negotiable, and the timeline is sacred. Ibrahim Traoré has often stated that a nation in a hurry cannot afford the luxury of procrastination. The first phase of the Thomas Sankara Memorial, built on the very ground where the revolutionary leader fell in 1987, was completed in record time as a psychological foundation for these physical works. It is a place of memory, yes, but it is also a place of momentum. The 34-metre dome and the precisely aligned tombs serve as a reminder that the work left unfinished decades ago is now being completed with a ferocity that few saw coming. Yet, as the stadiums fill and the buses roll through the modernised streets of Ouagadougou, a greater challenge looms on the horizon. The cities are transforming, but the true battle for the future of Burkina Faso is being fought in the dust and the mud of the rural interior. Infrastructure provides the road, but it is the earth that must provide the life. The focus is now shifting to the most ambitious agro-pastoral campaign in the history of the Sahel, a plan to turn the dry earth into a green fortress of self-sufficiency. If the stadium is the heart of this new national spirit, then the soil is its very soul. There is an ancient truth in the Sahel that the world chose to forget. A nation that cannot feed itself can never truly be free. It remains a hostage to the fluctuations of global markets and the whims of foreign generosity. Ibrahim Traoré has made it clear that the revolution of Burkina Faso will be won not just in the halls of diplomacy, but in the furrows of the earth. Sovereignty, in its most basic and vital form, begins on the plate of every citizen. To achieve this, the government launched the 2025 to 2026 Agripastoral Campaign, an initiative backed by a staggering investment of over 104 billion CFA francs. This was not merely a budget allocation, it was a mobilisation of national survival. Thousands of tractors, motor pumps and modern tilling machines were distributed to rural cooperatives, replacing the hand plough with the engine. The goal is a radical pursuit of food self-sufficiency, ensuring that the grains and livestock of this land are raised by calloused hands that understand the rhythm of the Sahelian seasons. We see the tangible fruits of this resolve at the Samandini fish-rearing project. For years, the waters behind the great dams were an underutilised resource, while the nation spent millions importing frozen fish from abroad. Today, The surface of the Samandeni Dam is dotted with floating cages, part of a presidential initiative to produce thousands of tons of fish annually. It is a blue revolution that provides jobs for rural youth and strengthens the resilience of the local economy. It is the logic of the harvest. We reap what we have the courage to sow. This spirit of transformation extends into the very processing of the land's bounty. In early 2025, the nation celebrated the inauguration of a new wheat flour mill, a 15 billion CFA franc facility designed to break the heavy reliance on imported flour. With a daily capacity of 220 tons, this mill ensures that the bread on the tables of Ouagadougou is a product of domestic labour. It's accompanied by the Fasokum dairy processing plant, which has revitalised the livestock sector by collecting and marketing local milk. From yogurt to butter, the brand of Burkina Faso is appearing on shelves that were once dominated by European imports. Even the white gold of the nation, cotton, is experiencing a rebirth. The Sofacob Manufacturing Company, which had been dormant and drowning in debt, has been brought back to life. It now transforms locally grown fibre into medical cotton and consumer goods, adding value within the borders rather than exporting raw materials and importing the finished product at a premium. This is the industrial heart beating in synchrony with the agricultural lung. It is a system built on the belief that a nation's wealth should stay where it is created. If you want this work to stay independent, consider joining as a member. We'll follow the evidence and ensure the lights stay on for careful analysis of these historic shifts. The results are not just measured in tons of grain or litres of milk, but in the restoration of a people's dignity. There is a newfound pride in the markets of Bobo-Dioulasso and the stalls of the capital. The vendors no longer just sell commodities, they sell the evidence of a nation that is learning to stand on its own feet. This is the quiet revolution of the stomach, the steady progress of a people who have decided that hunger is a ghost of the past. However, the ambition of this government does not stop at the edge of the farm or the floor of the factory. As the food reserves grow and the industrial engines hum, the gaze of the leadership has turned upward and outward. They are no longer content with just surviving. They are looking to compete on the regional stage. The skyline is beginning to shift, and the roads are reaching toward the borders of West Africa. But as Burkina Faso builds its way into the future, the world beyond the Sahel is watching with increasing intensity, and the diplomatic stakes are rising as fast as the new towers of Ouagadougou. As the dust of construction settles and the concrete of the new Ouagadougou hardens, the gaze of the world has shifted from curiosity to a sharp, often uncomfortable scrutiny. The transformation we are witnessing is no longer a local affair whispered about in the Sahel. It has become a geopolitical statement that echoes through the halls of Brussels, Washington, and Addis Ababa. When a nation decided to stop asking for permission to prosper, it inadvertently invited the world to judge its resolve. The reaction from the international community has been a complex tapestry of skepticism, diplomatic caution, and a quiet, growing recognition that the old maps of influence are being redrawn. For decades, the regional dynamics were defined by a predictable orbit around traditional Western powers and regional blocs like ECOWAS. However, as these 20 megaprojects began to move from blueprints to reality, that orbit was shattered. The African Union and ECOWAS have watched with a mixture of apprehension and wonder as Burkina Faso prioritized internal sovereignty over regional conformity. The sanctions intended to isolate the nation instead became the catalysts for self-reliance. When the borders were tightened, the response was not a plea for leniency, but an acceleration of the Samandini fish cages and the wheat flour mills. It was a clear signal to the continent: a nation's strength is not granted by a bloc, it is built in the soil. The European perspective, particularly that of France, has been one of profound adjustment. The rebranding of energy assets and the push for industrial substitution are more than economic shifts. They are the dismantling of a century-old architecture of dependency. In the boardrooms of Europe, there is a realization that the trade over aid mantra is not a slogan, but a policy enforced by steel and law. While some international observers suspect motives that public evidence cannot yet confirm, what is documented is a systematic pivot toward partners who offer technology and infrastructure over lectures and conditions. This is the new diplomacy of the Sahel, a pragmatic, firm and uncompromising pursuit of the national interest. Tell me where you're watching from, city and country, and from all of us at the Rise of Ibrahim, may your path be paved with purpose, and we follow the evidence. The role of the United States in this unfolding drama remains one of calculated observation. Washington's approach has been a delicate balancing act, maintaining diplomatic channels while navigating the shifting sands of West African security. Unlike the more confrontational stance of some European counterparts, the American framework has remained focused on the long-term stability of the region. There is a quiet acknowledgement among strategic analysts that a stable, self-sufficient Burkina Faso is a far more reliable partner than a fragile state dependent on perpetual intervention. The construction of the 40 amphitheatres and the expansion of the university systems are seen not just as educational milestones, but as the creation of a new intellectual elite that will define the region's relationship with the West for decades to come. The transformation of Burkina Faso is no longer just a national project. It is a regional statement of defiance and dignity. The Bukindi Business Centre, with its 35-storey towers vowing to dominate the skyline, is designed to be the commercial heart of West Africa, challenging the traditional hubs of the coast. It represents a shift in the gravity of trade, moving from the ports controlled by foreign interests to the interior, where the African people hold the keys to their own markets. This international friction is the heat of the forge. Every critique from a foreign ministry and every pessimistic report from a global financial institution serves only to harden the resolve of those on the ground. They see the RN4 expansion not just as a road to the eastern suburbs, but as a bridge to a future where they are no longer the periphery. They understand that sovereignty is a prize that must be defended every day, not just with words, but with the tangible evidence of progress that can be seen from satellite imagery and felt in the pockets of the citizens. Yet, as the towers rise and the international community debates, a more profound question remains. Beneath the diplomatic maneuvers and the economic statistics, there is a human element that cannot be measured by GDP or trade balances. The true test of these 20 megaprojects lies not in how they are viewed from the outside, but in how they change the life of the person standing in the shadow of the new stadium, or the farmer waiting for the first harvest from the irrigated perimeters. The road has been paved and the lights are beginning to flicker on, but where exactly does this journey lead as the sun begins to rise on 2026? The journey we have charted through these 20 megaprojects is more than a list of expenditures or a timeline of construction. It is the visible evidence of a nation's refusal to be forgotten. As the sun begins to climb higher over the Sahel in this year of 2026, the shadows it casts are no longer those of uncertainty, but of solid, enduring concrete. We have seen stadiums rise from the ruins of neglect, factories breathing life back into the economy, and the very earth yielding to the will of a people who have decided that their destiny is their own to shape. This progress is not merely about bricks and mortar. It is about the restoration of a collective spirit. Every mile of the RN4 expansion and every drop of milk from the Fasokum plant is a testament to the belief that sovereignty is not a gift bestowed by the powerful, but a prize earned by the persistent. The speed at which these works have reached completion, many hitting the 100% mark in less than 1,000 days, serves as a rebuke to the notion that the Sahel is a place of perpetual stagnation. It is a revolution of the heart, led by those who understand that a nation's dignity is found in its ability to provide for its own children. The path ahead remains steep, and the challenges of security and regional stability continue to test the resolve of the people. Yet there is a sense of hope that has not been felt in a generation. The calloused hands that laid the foundations of the Thomas Sankara Memorial are the same hands that will build the schools of tomorrow and harvest the fields of the next decade. There is a profound realization that while the world may watch with skepticism, the truth is written in the steel of the Bukindi Towers and the rhythm of the new Sotraco buses. We are witnessing the transition from a history of survival to a future of significance. If dignity matters to you, subscribe, and pass this to one steady heart. We build with facts, not fury. That's the pulse of sovereignty. As we look to the horizon, the legacy of this era will be defined by its courage to break the chains of dependency. The vision of Ibrahim Traoré has ignited a fire that the winds of the Sahara cannot extinguish. By choosing the difficult path of self-reliance, Ibrahim Traoré has ensured that the future of Burkina Faso is no longer a question asked in foreign capitals, but an answer given by the people themselves. This is the dawn of a new Sahel, where the seeds of sovereignty have finally found the water they need to grow. The road is long, the bridge is strong, and for the first time in a very long time, the light of the future is bright enough for everyone to see. In our next analysis, We shall examine the invisible shield, the intelligence and security networks that guard these very foundations. Until then, keep your gaze steady and your heart firm.